and welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches from around the nation that are making the big time where they're at. This episode is brought to you by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is the software for strength and conditioning coaches. Join the thousands of coaches that log into TeamBuildr every day to write training programs, build questionnaires, access and track athlete data. TeamBuildr is compatible with mobile devices, laptops, tablets, and TVs, which makes it the perfect software for any setting. If you sign up with the code BIGTIME, you will receive a 25% discount on the Sports Science Certification course. Build the foundational skills necessary to manage data and learn how to transform that data into actionable assets for your program. You will also receive a free 10-week summer football programming template, which automatically works within your TeamBuildr 14-day free trial. No more spreadsheets and workout cards that track training maxes that'll change day by day, especially during breaks. Head to TeamBuildr.com and sign up with the code BIGTIME to save time and paper today. This episode is also brought to you by PowerLift. Taking your athletic facility from concept to completion can be a challenge. At PowerLift, it's their goal to make the process as seamless as possible from start to finish. Their weight equipment is made from the toughest materials that can withstand excessive use from coaches and athletes. It's sought after for its unique design, customizable appearance, affordability, and their superior warranty that training facilities want and need. Their weight rooms are designed with the athlete in mind, and they pride themselves on their ability to outfit athletic facilities based on a team's unique goals. That's why high schools, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, and athletic performance facilities around the world have chosen to use PowerLift to help maximize their strength training facilities. Call them today to be contacted by a rep in your area and give them a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see for yourself why their clients are PowerLift proud. Now, let's get to this week's episode. Welcome to episode 156 of the Big Time Strength Podcast. I'm your host for this week, Amanda Berg. And this is actually our season finale for season 4, but don't worry, we are like NASCAR around here, and we are starting up season 5 right around the corner. So we have a lot of great stuff and great coaches to bring to you next season, and a lot of good stuff in store. But we wanted to finish out this season and highlight, I thought, a great special keynote that we had at our Big Time Strength and Football Clinic that we held here in Minnesota this year. And the keynote speaker was our first-year superintendent. His name is Mark Raymond. And, after he did his keynote and the attendees were able to hear, I'm like, wow, I would love for the coaches who listen to this podcast to be able to hear this message as well. And you will hear that Mr. Raymond doesn't necessarily have strength and conditioning or football experience, but he has great experience as a coach. And that is what we are usually here to listen to and get better at. So I wanted to make sure to share his message with you, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did and as much as our attendees did. We want to start you out this conference, given we are all coaches, and something just to give you a little bit of insight and just get you going and unite us as we move forward. And I am grateful for our speaker. I asked him to speak last minute to be a replacement. And I knew, he asked, what do you want me to speak on? And I said, I just want you to tell stories, because he does that so well. So that's one of the first things that I noticed about him when I heard him speak. And he is our superintendent this year, first year superintendent, and you can imagine right now what his schedule is like, and I'm so grateful that he took the time to start off our conference today. So I want to bring up right now our superintendent, Mark Raymond.
I'm gonna stay down front here. Yeah, you guys were lined up to have a terrific speaker. Unfortunately, Jerry Hansen couldn't make it today. I was at a gymnastics meet last night. I ran into Amanda, and she said, "Hey, what are you doing in the morning?" And we had a great conversation, and I thought, boy, this is not my audience. As you can tell, I'm probably not a football coach or a strength and conditioning guy.
Which is the perfect superintendent to have.
I coached for about 25 years, and I've done girls soccer, boys soccer, volleyball, wrestling, and gymnastics. And as you can tell from a variety of places, it isn't because of my athletic abilities and all those things that I probably participated in. Yeah, that's not it. A lot of it was out of need. I was in a small school district and they needed people to coach, and I was available, and they said, "What are you doing?" And so I showed up, and so I started working through it. So when I started talking with Amanda, I thought, you know, what I really want to do is just kind of maybe give you an opportunity to hear a little bit about my coaching journey and where it went, because it ran the gamut. I can tell you about an 0-16 season in girls soccer. I can tell you about 7 straight years going to the state tournament. We had an opportunity to put somebody on the top of the podium 11 times, 11 individual state champions. We've had some success, and I've had some really big failures. And in between there, I learned a lot of lessons. I'm going to touch on 2 today, and there's plenty more. One that's universal, I think, and then the second one kind of speaks to today, why you're here and what you're doing, and maybe your journey. So the first one's about relationships. And everybody talks about relationships, and they say it, oh, you got to build relationships, you got to do this stuff. But when the rubber hits the road, what does it mean for you and your program? And I'll tell you the story, and a couple coaches in the room maybe have heard this story before, that epiphany moment for me as a coach when it became really clear that I was really bad at this. And I had a young lady that taught me a lesson in about 12 seconds, and it was whether or not I was willing to receive the lesson or not. So I'm coaching girls soccer. I'm in the middle of a 0-16 season. I don't know that I'm in the middle of an 0-16 season. I'm coaching my ass off. I'm doing amazing things. If you ask me, I was great. It just, kids weren't quite there. I had better kids. If I had better kids, they wouldn't need me. They could take care of it on their own. And so we're in the middle of this game, and I bring out my defenseman. She's a sweeper, and if you don't know a lot about soccer, the very last defender is the sweeper. They have really only one goal in life: make the ball go wide. That's all we got to do. Don't let the ball stay in the middle of the field. If you want to boil it down to the simplest thing, make the ball go wide, we'll reset our defense, because if it gets to you, we're in trouble. She's my sweeper. Somewhere along the line, I pull her out of the game, and I give her the best motivational speech I could as a 22, 3, 4-year-old young man. I dressed her down, and I told her exactly what she needed to be doing in no uncertain terms. She kind of looked at me funny, and I didn't realize it at the moment, but the wheels were spinning. And I put her back in the game, and here comes this girl. She was from Mankato East. She was a track athlete. I happen to know her because she was a gymnast as well. Top 5 in the 100-meter dash. She gets behind you, you don't get to catch up. She comes in full bore with the ball. Megan's there, getting ready, opens up a little bit to shield. We're going to push her to the left side of the field, and right as she opens up, she just kind of opens. full stance. And the girl goes by, 110 miles an hour. Zip. And she turns and looks right at me. And the lesson began. I was thinking, oh, I'm mad. What the hell? It was one of those moments in my life where I could choose the right path or the wrong path, and let's just say I got lucky. I chose the right one because my brain started working and I was like, there's a cause, and that cause was me. Whew. Big breath. Don't do anything. Don't sub her out. Don't yank her from the game. 5 minutes to half. It's predictable. We get to half, comes up. I meet her as she comes off the field, and what happened? She tells me in no uncertain terms, you tell me what happened. Well, I made a mistake, didn't I? You don't ever talk to me that way in public. If you want to pull me aside and have that conversation, I'd be willing to have it, but not in front of all those people. Wow, you are so much mature, more than I am, and time to learn a lesson. My relationship skills at that moment were at their absolute bottom. And I started working my way up. And I started figuring out the thing that everybody can say is that kids will do absolutely anything for you if they love you. But if you don't have that relationship first, it's going to be really difficult for them to do things that they don't necessarily want to do all the time just because you ask. It's hard, it's painful, it takes a lot of effort. Everything that we ask them in order to build a championship type of a team is more than what they've ever been asked to do in any other phase of their life. So why? Because there is no promise of win. You can't tell them, hey, if you guys all do this over the summer, I guarantee we're going to win. Every coach knows you can't say that. You get a chance at winning, but everybody else in the state's doing the same thing. I started to develop as a coach and develop relationships better. Fast forward a little bit. I started coaching gymnastics. As you can tell, I'm not a gymnast. I have a degree in physics, and that's my only qualification for coaching gymnastics. I know why it should work. I just got to convince everybody else of that fact. So I started working through it, and this goes back to today. I have no background in gymnastics, zero. So how do I go from the absolute worst coach in the state? And I don't want to brag or say anything, but I became a pretty decent little coach. I was pretty good. I've actually done some speaking on technique camps and stuff like that. I've ended up in some pretty big gyms, and it worked out. So the question is why and how? Because that's the coaching journey. And that's why you're here today. Everybody in this room knows something you don't. Everybody in this room, the 0-8 guy to the guy that won the state championship and was the coach of the year. Well done, by the way. Knows something that would make your program better. The question is are you going to listen to him when he says it? Are you going to hear it? Or better yet, are you going to ask, hey, what are you doing? How are you taking care of this? Because you're never going to get access to just great coaches. Boy, if I could just speak to the guy that's running Eden Prairie's team, for 20 minutes, I could really fix a lot of problems. You might not get that access. But you're going to have access to a lot of individual coaches, and you can learn a lot from everybody. I've learned a ton from every coach I can because when I started in gymnastics, I knew one thing for certain. I didn't know anything. And I asked a lot of questions. Now I'm going to tell you one moment for me that I built my program on. So I happened to be in a gym with a guy by the name of Tom Forrester. Now Tom Forrester happened to be, and it could have been either way, Tom happens to be amazing at what he does. He is the U.S. Olympic bar coach. And Tom Forrester at a coaching clinic makes a comment kind of on the side, and he says, fatigue, not failure. And he goes on with the rest of his coaching. I'm taking copious amounts of notes on this, and I write it down, fatigue, not failure. And then a little bit later, I think about it for a second, and I circle it. A little bit later, I come back to it, and I'm like, damn, this is it for me, because it worked for me. When I looked at gymnastics, it was a sport of failure. Every day is a failure. Hey, let's work on this, because you can't do it. Let's reinforce all day long that you can throw a layout, but not a layout full. We're going to throw layout full drills all day. You can't do it. Every day the girls would come to the gym. Every day was full of failure. That's all it was. Fatigue, not failure. So how can I begin to build systems? And that's what I want to tell you. Look for ways that you can build systems that work for you. For me, my biggest point was this concept of failure. How can I change their mindset? Because in the sport of gymnastics, every kid can do every skill. I guarantee it. The laws of physics says so. You can do it. It's easy. All you got to do is have the right timing and the right speed, and it's not that difficult. Usually athletic ability is not the limiting agent. It's what's between the ears. At some point, the sport becomes really super scary. How do I move them through that? For me, that was the biggest hurdle. It might not be your biggest hurdle. You might have a different one. But how are you going to build a system around that in order to support yourself as you work your way through it? How are you going to build a system around that in order to help work your students through that? Fatigue, not failure. I bring in girls, strength and conditioning. Girls generally, okay, aren't going to have the upper body strength when they come into the gym that I need for gymnastics. They don't just walk into the gym with it. So if I grab a bunch of 7th grade girls and I'm using the equipment that I have, I've got bars, let's do pull-ups. Guess how many 7th grade girls can do pull-ups? You know. Fatigue, not failure. I have instantly put in failure. And I can't tell you how many gyms I've been in, how many gymnastics coaches I've talked to, and I give them the, what the heck are you doing? You tell them to go do pull-ups? Well, yeah, they got to be able to do pull-ups. How many can they do? 1? Get 1. And by the end of the season, I'm hoping they can do 3. And so they go over to the thing, they grab it, they do 1, and then they hang at the bottom, and they're like, 1, okay, done. And what do they walk away with? Failure. I can do 1. How do you build a system around that to support it? How do you move away from that? So I get a girl, I put her on the bar, I grab her knee, and I grab her ankle. So she's here. And I tell her, and I tell everybody in the gym, we're doing 10 pull-ups every day. Everybody does 10 pull-ups. Everybody's jaw drops. They're like, I can't do 10 pull-ups. Yeah, you can. Here's what you got to do. We're going to fatigue, but we're not going to fail. Your goal as a good teammate is to make sure that she never stops. Your goal isn't to make her do 10 pull-ups. Her job is to do 10 pull-ups. Your job is to make sure she continues to move up. I don't have to move her fast, but she's got to move up. So now she starts doing pull-ups, and you just give a little lift on the bottom. And as long as you're lifting enough to make sure that she's moving up, she can keep right on going. Now, it takes a while for everybody to figure out that this becomes a lift at some point. And if you're doing too much, the girl that's actually supposed to be getting the workout isn't getting the workout. But they figure it out after a while. I had a young lady. She was the 2001 state floor champion, second highest score in the state of Minnesota, still to this day. I watched her land her final tumbling pass. She came off the floor and she tells me, what do you think? And I told her, you know, you're the best of your team I've ever seen you throw. It's just a matter of whether those 4 guys out there saw it. Because in gymnastics, it's a lot. Did 4 guys see what I saw? 9'9", 9'9", 9'85", 9'85". Wow, that was fun. Wish we could have got one more 9'9" because we'd have had the state record. 27 pull-ups as a senior by herself. As a 7th grader, she was 1. System brought her through. It wasn't me. How do you build your systems? So as you work through the day-to-day, I've got 2 small pieces of advice for you. 1, you're doing all the right things right now because you're here. You're trying to build your system. There is no magic recipe. There is no secret sauce. There is no, boy, if they'd just give me that playbook. That ain't going to happen. And everybody's system is going to be slightly different. You can't adopt somebody else's because it won't be true to you and you won't be able to initiate it, you won't be able to run it. But I know that you have one for yourself. The matter is developing it. Use your resources. You're here. There's experts. Ask the questions. Be ready for the answer. Don't discount things. I can tell you that I would be a completely different coach in gymnastics if it wasn't for an offhanded comment by Tom Forrester, who did not mean that his lecture on that day on how to swing around a bar was supposed to change how I fundamentally coach, because it was fatigue, not failure, was built into the rest of the things I did. Everything that I did in the gym always came back to that idea. I reflected back on that. How do I work kids through progressions so that they see small successes instead of failure, 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 failure. Finally got it! All right, you know how long you celebrate? Well, 13 seconds as a coach. Yeah, you landed a full. Let's start talking about a 1.5. Failure, 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 failure. How do we celebrate those little things as we go through? It changed my world. I'm hoping that as you go through your journey today, that you find some things and you find some people that help build your systems so that you can be the absolute best coach you were meant to be, and your program can go to places that you want it to go. Again, I am probably not the guy for this audience, but there's points in coaching that are universal. Build your relationships and make sure that when those moments show up that you're supposed to react properly. Take a deep breath, take 10 seconds and make sure that the first reaction is the right reaction, because I know that Megan Savell taught me a lesson. I was thankful that I was ready to receive it because of a deep breath. As you work through your coaching colleagues, know that their record and their success does not indicate their knowledge of the sport or what they do. Everybody knows one thing that would improve your program. Your job is to extract it. Find out what that is. What are you doing? And it could be as simple as, how do you run a team meeting? How do you start the year? What do you mean by culture? I'm really excited to host this. I think it's a great thing for us, and I know that our coaching staff is going to have an opportunity to do some presenting later on. I spent some time in coaching, and I can tell you that from an outsider's perspective, looking at it, I don't know anything about football. I'm going to admit it, nothing, zero. But I know culture. What they've done with our program builds amazing young men. They also play pretty good. I'm more proud about the young men. You guys have a great day. Extract whatever you can from our staff. They're going to be happy to get it. I know they are. Extract whatever you can from the other presenters and each other. Learn lots. And I'm hoping that this opportunity builds as we go forward and we're able to do this year in and year out. Thanks for having me.
Huh? I told you it would be awesome. Huge thank you to Mark Raymond for joining us. And as you heard, he joined us last minute at our Big Time Strength and Football Conference, which we are excited and planning to host again next year in some form or another. So stay tuned for that. This has been a great season 4. We are more and more grateful all the time for the listeners who reach out and who seek us out to reach out to a coach who has been on the podcast. So continue to do that. As always, if you know of a small school strength coach, male or female, that needs to be highlighted on this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Make sure to feel free to email us anytime at bigtimestrength@gmail.com. And wherever you're at, I hope you have a great week of training. For us right now, we are recording this in the summer, and we start up both Preston and myself start up our training next week. So for summer. And I'm excited. That just brings a whole different vibe and energy to the room. So season 4 has been great. Season 5 is going to be even better. Thank you for being loyal to us, and wherever you're at, have a great week.